Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a really fun slider card to show you. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and grab all the images we'll need for today. From the Potting Shed set from Art Impressions, we're going to be using just the top of that one stamp there, just those little birdhouses up at the top. And then from that one, we're going to be using the gardening tools. And there we're going to grab that little potted plant. And from the Holiday Mansion Garden set, we're going to be using that little potted plant and those three little birds. And then from the Mist set, we're going to be grabbing that little lady there. And then the wood frame set. And you get two in this set of stamps, so we're going to be using that one on the left. And I'm going to ink those up with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And for paper, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. So I've stamped these out, and I'm going to grab one more of that larger potted plant and stamp that again. So now I'm going to stamp this little lady here. And I'm just putting her down towards the bottom of this cardstock, not all the way at the bottom. We're going to be cutting her out. I just want to make sure I have enough room to do that. And then with my perfectly plaid petite paper pack from Lawn Fawn, I'm going to grab this plaid here. I wanted to have her shirt be in a plaid tone. Now you could certainly do that with your markers, but I thought it would be easier just to use this pattern paper. So I'm just going to cut down a little piece of it here. I only need to stamp the shirt, so I don't need much of this. And I'll place that right behind the shirt here. Then I'll go ahead and stamp that again using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Once that's all set, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. I'll cut right along that line all the way around. Now you can see that her hand is on that shirt. So we're going to fix that here. Taking another little piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm placing it right behind her arm and her hand on the left side there. And I'll ink up just that little section. And now I can cut this out as well. And all I need is from the elbow up and the whole hand here I need, because she's going to be holding those little garden tools. So this makes it easy to create a little place to put those garden tools behind, as though they look like she's holding them with her hands. So I'm just cutting out from the elbow up to her hand, and I'll show you that here a little bit closer. You can see that there. So now that I have that, I can go ahead and attach this hand behind that lower portion of the arm there. And all that will be showing is her skin, the arm and her hand. Everything else would be behind that plaid cardstock. And the only reason I left a little bit there was so that I'd have a little tab to attach that to the shirt. And again, that'll leave a little space there so I can put those little garden tools in her hand. Now you could certainly just cut a slit in the paper, but I thought this would be a lot easier. So now I can go ahead and attach this. I'm using a little bit of Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to glue this down. And I want to line that up really well. Now you can see that that hand will lift up so that I can attach those little garden tools. So to color her in, I'm using Flesh Color, Light Pink, and Peach Pink. So I've added a little bit of that peach pink to her cheeks. And then I'm adding that flesh color around her face, and I'll pull that in towards the center. And then I added a little bit of the light pink to her lips. And I'm just blending that up towards the center of her lips to keep the center the lightest. And these are a water-based marker, and I'm using a blender pen to do my blending. Now when you change colors with the pens, you want to clean off your blender pen, so you want to scribble it onto your scrap paper until it goes clear, and then you'll know that you can change colors. And here I'm using the light gray. I did want to keep her pants white, but I wanted to add a little bit of a shadow there just to give them a little bit more dimension. Now I'll use the yellow in her hair, so I'm adding it sort of towards the base of the hair, and then I'm pulling up towards the top. And then I'll add a little bit of beige just to give a little bit more of a shadow there. Now I'm grabbing the light gray again to go around this wood frame. I'm just going to go add a little bit of color, blend that in, and then I'll come back in and add a few shadows. And the stamp really gives you an idea where those shadows would be, so you can just follow those little lines on the stamp. You can see I'm doing that there. So just add a few little darker areas there and then blend that out again. Now I'm using light green and deep green to do the leaves on this little potted plant. And I'll start with that light green, add a little bit of the deep green, and then just blend that out towards the tips of the leaves. With this one, I'm using the yellow and light green to do my leaves. And I'll start with the yellow, add a little bit of the green, and then pull that out towards the tips again. Now, with light pink and peach pink, I'm going to color in all the flowers on this pot. I'll start with that light color, then add that peach pink in the centers, and just blend that just a little bit. And I'll do that other larger one the exact same way. And then with orange and yellow, I'll do the flowers on this one. So again, I'm starting with the yellow, adding a little touch of the orange in the center, and then just pulling that out towards the tips of the petals there. And then for all the pots, I'm using light blue. I'm adding the light blue to each side of the pot, and then just kind of pulling in with my blender right towards the center. That'll just give it a little bit more dimension. Now, with these same combination of colors, I'm going to color in my little birdhouses. So I'm using the light pink and the peach pink again. And then a little bit of that light blue, the light gray for the tops of the birdhouses. And then I'm coming in with the orange. Back to that light gray. And then I'll use the light gray here on this little lamp as well. Again, keeping the darker color on the two sides. A little bit of yellow for that light bulb. And then I'll introduce a little bit of beige here for these two gardening gloves. Then back to the light gray to finish out the top of this little frame that we're going to be putting around our slider mechanism. And then for the little gardening tool, I'm going back to that beige color for the handles, and then back to the light gray to do the metal part on these tools. For my three little birds, I'm going back to the light blue, I'll add a little bit of that pink to the cheeks. And then I'll just blend that very lightly. Just wanted to add a little touch of color to these birds. And then a little bit of orange on the beak. So now that we have those colored in, I'm going to grab the coordinating dies for the ones that I do have, which are the little potted plants and those little birds. And then we'll use our scissors to cut out the rest of these. So I'm going to go ahead and tape those down with a little bit of purple tape, and I'll run those through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. Now that I have those die cut, we'll grab some detail scissors and we'll go ahead and cut this out. So we just need this top portion here. Again, the part that we colored in. I'm going to go right around those birdhouses, and I'm leaving a little white border all the way around. And then I'll just cut away all that excess, and I'll continue cutting that out. And then for this frame, I'm going to go all the way around the edges of the frame. And then for the center, you could use an X-Acto knife here, but I like to just punch a hole in the center and just cut from corner to corner, just kind of creating like an X. And then it makes it really easy to cut out these little pieces. And I'm just going to follow the line on the center of this image as well. So I finished cutting that out. So now we have everything all set to go. With a piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, 6 1/4 by 6 1/2. On the 6 1/2 inch side, I'm going to score this at 3 1/4. That's going to make a mini slimline, which is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. So I'll press that out with the bone folder. Now I want to add some wood grain texture on this. So I'm using the Knock on Wood Lawn Fawn Petite Paper Pack, and we're going to grab that yellow. I'll cut this down so that I have a little bit of frame all the way around this. So I'm using my Tim Holtz paper trimmer to cut that down. And I want that wood grain to go vertically from top to bottom. So I cut that down so that, again, I have a little border there, and I have a second piece as well. With this second piece, we're going to create the slider mechanism. So this is the die. This is, again, from Art Impressions, and this is the slider die. And I'll line that up nice and straight on this wood grain cardstock. And I'm going to tape that down with a little bit of purple tape and run that through my machine. This is the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And then I'm going to fold on those score lines that it creates. The die creates the scores, so we're going to fold in all 3 of those little tabs. I'm pressing that out with my bone folder, and that again is going to create our little slider mechanism. And that will pull out of the top. So I want this little lady to pull out from the top. I want to see where these birdhouses are going to be, so I'm just trying to line this up approximately where I need it. That's why I cut this paper a little larger than it needed to be, so that I have some room to work with here. So I'm drawing a line at the bottom of where the mechanism will be, and I've got my bookmark die. We're not going to create a bookmark, we're just going to create the little slider for inside here. So I'm putting that little arch on this die right below that line that we drew, right below her foot there. And then I'll run that through the die cutting machine. And that's going to give us a pretty little scallop top on the top of our slider mechanism. So now I can cut away that bottom portion, and again we have that pencil mark there, so I know exactly where to make my cut. And now it's a little wide for our mechanism, so I'm just going to slice off a little strip from each side, just a little tiny bit, maybe about 1/8 of an inch from each side. So now that'll fit right inside here, and that'll easily slide in and out. If it's too tight, just trim off a little bit more from each side, and that'll give us that nice little rounded top. So now you can see that where those little birdhouses are going to fit in. Now I've got my Lawn Fawn clear acetate, so I wanted to put a piece of acetate over this. And I'm brushing this off with my Nuvo Surface Sweep brush. It just removes any lint from my acetate without scratching it. So I'll put that in my slider mechanism. And the reason I'm doing this is because that frame we're creating with that wood frame, it's a little bit small, so I need a place for that to sit. So with this acetate here, I'll have a place for that to sit on the front of my slider mechanism. So I'm going to let that sit and dry, and then I'll trim away just that acetate around that little opening there. Now with my 1/4 inch score tape, I'm going to go ahead and apply tape to all 3 of those little tabs. So now you can see she'll sit right behind there. Now I did want to punch a hole at the top of this little slider, and this is the flower punch from Fiskars. And I'm just going to place that right in the center there and punch that out. We'll be attaching a little bit of twine to this later on. So I also feel like this could be a bookmark. If this is removed, the recipient could keep that slider portion as a bookmark. So now I've got that piece of wood grain cardstock that we cut out earlier, and I'm using my Distress Oxide ink in the fossilized amber, and I'm using my Picket Fence Studio Life Changing brush to go around the edges, and I'm just adding a little shadow around the edges. That'll just finish that off, and it'll take away a little bit of the white around the edges as well. And I'm going to do the same thing for the slider mechanism. I'm just folding it closed so that I can add that little bit of shadow here as well. Now I can attach this panel to the front of my card, and I'll just center that. I'm pressing that out with my We Are Memory Keepers bone folder. And now I wanted a sentiment for when you lift up the slider. And this is from the Mrs. set. And it says, if friends were flowers, I'd pick you. So I need to figure out where that will be on my card. I have to stamp it on the card so that when the slider moves up, you will see the sentiment. So I'm going to figure out where that slider is going to be and where that sentiment needs to be. And I was trying to decide where I wanted the sentiment, but I decided to put it in the middle. So I'm just using this just to position everything. I'm placing that sentiment down onto that acetate. I'm going to pick that sentiment up with the lid of my MISTI, and then I can go ahead and take that slider mechanism out. Now I can do my stamping, again inking that up with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'll stamp that a couple of times. So now that I have my sentiment, I can go ahead and attach my slider mechanism. Now I'm going to remove the backing from one side, and then I'm just going to fold it over on these other 2 sides just to get it ready, just in case I don't get it positioned properly. I don't want the whole thing to stick down right away. I want to give myself a little time here to adjust this. So I'm going to try to line that up nice and straight. And then I can go ahead and press that side down. And then I can just remove the rest of the backing here and press that into place. So again, that just gives you a little time to move things around if you need to. So now I can go ahead and tuck those gardening tools right under her hand there. And now I can glue the hand down as well. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the back side of this. And then I'll add a little glue to the front at the top there. And then I'll just glue that into place. And you do want to make sure you glue her hand down because you don't want it to get in the way of your mechanism there. Now I can go ahead and cut the top little sides off the top of this frame, and I can go ahead and cut that middle section out as well. And I'm just following the lines on the stamp to do this. So now I can put glue around this and attach this to the bottom section of the slider. And again, that acetate will give me a little bit more area to glue things onto. You can see that frame is a little bit narrow, so I'm able to glue that in place. And I think it also makes the slider a little easier to move in and out as well. Now I've got the little bird houses, and this will complete the top part of the frame. That wood matches the wood grain frame that we already created, so it looks like it was meant to be this way. I'm just going to make sure that's glued down nice and secure. I'll place a few acrylic blocks on there to hold that down while it dries. And then I can go ahead and position my little flower pots here. I'm going to glue down a couple of these flat, and then I'll pop up that little potted plant there. So we created a little gardening shed with some of the pieces from that set. So it's, again, I like looking at my stamps differently to see what I can create, how I can change things up. So, you know, take a look at what you have. And these little birds, I use these all the time. I love these little birds from that set. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these in place. I decided finally to put that little bird up on those potted plants there, and then attach these two just flat. And again, you want to make sure you're not getting in the way of that mechanism at the top. So make sure you glue anything down behind it nice and flat. Now I did decide to add a little bit of a wood grain floor here, and I'm using the ground espresso. I've cut this piece about a 1/2 inch to the same width as that yellow panel there. And I'm adding a little shadow right at the very top of this wood grain. And again, that's from the Knock on Wood Petite Paper Pack. And then I'm going to add a little bit of score tape to the back of this. And I can go ahead and tape that down. And that kind of grounds the scene a little bit here. It looks like she's going to step out onto this the little patio part of her potting shed. Now I am going to add some anti-static powder all around this. I want it to slide in and out of this mechanism really easily. So I'm going to add a little bit of that powder, and that'll just, again, make this slide more easily in and out. Now with that little flower hole that we cut at the top, I'm going to add a little bit of twine. I have some twine here that I've had in my stash forever. It's kind of a bright yellow color. So I'm going to loop that through, and then down here I'll tie a little bow. I'll tie a knot, and then I'll tie that into a bow. Once I have that adjusted, I can go ahead and cut away any excess here. So the next thing I wanted to do was add a little bit of a glossy effect to that light bulb. So I'm using the Nuvo Crystal Glaze and adding that, and it'll just make that light bulb look like glass. And then using my Uniball Signo white gel pen, I'm going to add some highlights here. And this will just make everything pop. And I'm going to add that white to the center of each of those flowers. I'll also add those same highlights to her as well, to her hair and to the gardening tools. Now let me give you a closer look at the finished card. You can see how cute this is. So we've created a little potting shed of our own just by using that slider mechanism. And again, I think this would make a great bookmark. And that says, if friends were flowers, I'd pick you. And now you can see it moves easily in and out because we added that little bit of anti-static powder there. So I certainly hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.